Hello and welcome on to another episode of the ISO Ball Podcast with your host, Derek Terrio, your place to learn about the NBA on and off the court. And we're excited today to have my second official guest. Nick was our first, and our second is here today, and it's my good friend and avid basketball savant, Niko Moniz. Niko, welcome.
What's up, what's up? I know I might not be as good as Nick in the intellectual side, but I get those picks, I got that little mentalist thing going with basketball that Nick doesn't have too much.
Okay, so there you go. So we're getting you different perspectives as promised from a basketball standpoint. And today, being about 41, 42 games in, great time for midseason awards. Let's hand them out. I mean, I think it's been a good year for some of these awards. A lot of parity with a lot of these, except for a few. And let's start with the first one, actually. Get it out of the way, I think. The one that has the least parity, and I think that's Rookie of the Year. I'll let you start. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Rookie of the Year is kind of no question this year. It's Luka Doncic.
Agreed.
I mean, he looks like a veteran. He doesn't look like a rookie, and that comes with playing in Spain with grown men and not playing in college with boys. That's the big difference here. I mean, it's crazy, though, when you do look at this rookie cast, because you have DeAndre Ayton, who's putting up numbers. Like, I believe he's 16.7 points and 10.7 rebounds per game. That's a double-double. He's averaging a double-double, and he's not even in the consideration for Rookie of the Year.
It's true.
Just to compare it to, big men of past who have won Rookie of the Year, Karl Anthony Towns, 18 points, 10 rebounds. Blake Griffin, 22 points, 12 rebounds. Emeka Okafor, 15 points, 10 rebounds. These are all guys that won the award with similar numbers that Ayton's putting up. True. And he's not in the conversation.
Yeah, you're right. I have him third. But that's not necessarily in the conversation. I mean, I even have Jaren Jackson Jr. above him. I thought he's been making more of an impact. Now, when we do these awards too, and I probably should preface this, is I give you a bonus as if you contribute to winning. If you're putting up empty stats on teams that aren't getting anywhere, like DeAndre Ayton's a perfect example. I'd have him too if Jaren Jackson weren't contributing to a playoff, almost at least a playoff contender in Memphis. So I should preface that with some of my awards that's the way I went to.
Yeah, that's fair too. But I mean, Luka Doncic's stats aren't really meaningful either when you look at his team.
Well, true. The Mavericks, there's a good point for that.
If you want to talk about that, then Jaren Jackson Jr. should be that guy, man. He's putting numbers up on a Memphis team that's surprising a lot of people. But at the end of the day, it's Luka Doncic. I mean, even Ayton, as much as I want to love him, and the Phoenix Suns, they're terrible. They're a terrible team. But he's putting up numbers there, even on a terrible team. And that they're not going to be good this year. They might not be good next year. But you get an R.J. Barrett or a Zion Williamson on that team.
I've talked about that a few times on this podcast.
It's going to be scary.
Absolutely. You're right. And, we haven't even mentioned Trae Young, who hasn't necessarily been bad. But again, I kind of put him in the same category of Ayton, where you're just kind of putting up this empty stats. And it's kind of not fair because they don't have a supporting cast around them. More so Ayton has Booker, which I think is, potential superstar there. But
there's a reason these teams were lottery teams and got the picks, right?
It's very true. But then you get a situation again with Jaren Jackson where it's kind of Memphis, who had Connolly and Gasol fall off for a year, got into the lottery, gets a pick and a player like Jaren Jackson, and is now right back on track to hopefully being, a team in the future, although I'm kind of skeptical with the age of Connolly and Gasol. But back to this Rookie of the Year conversation, I totally agree. Just to run off Luka Doncic's stats real quick, he's playing 32 minutes. First of all, he's played 39 games, durable guy, even though he doesn't have an NBA body yet either. Like, you see him out there, he's kind of he's a little bit pudgy, especially at the beginning of the season, and just because he hasn't had it necessarily the need to get in shape because he's been dominating the EuroLeague since he was 16, 17 years old, probably playing video games on Twitch and Fortnite, and probably has carried those habits into the NBA. Those will obviously change, but even despite that, 32 minutes a game, 19.6 points per game, almost 20 points a game, 43% from the field. Okay, he's a rookie. He's taking 15 shots a game and of difficult variety, step back threes.
I was going to say, he has one of the most lethal step backs in the game.
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying out of rookies. Out of anyone in the NBA, his step back is right up there with all
absolutely disgusting. Agreed. And speaking of that step back threes, 37.1% from downtown and shooting 6 attempts a game. So there's volume there, and he's making them at a high clip. 6.7 rebounds, about 5 assists, 3.3 turnovers. Okay, I'm willing to live with that. He's a rookie. He's trying passes. He's making decisions, learning things. I don't really care about that. 1.1 steals a game, 56% true shooting, which is about league average, and then 26% usage. So they're clearly playing through Doncic. Doncic is the guy they're asking him to score. And, I mean, for a 19-year-old rookie, he's putting up, respectable numbers and, carrying a team damn near to the playoff spot in the West. In the West. Which I think is unbelievable.
Can you believe that he technically, I know he got picked third, but really he was picked fifth when you look at the trade that sent him to Dallas.
I know. Like the Kings passed on him. The
Phoenix,
Grizzlies passed on him, and Phoenix passed on him,
and Atlanta,
and Atlanta, true, yeah.
Atlanta had the chance, and they took him and shipped him right away to Trae Young, which
exactly. So let's wrap up this conversation very quickly. But do you think, and like I guess it's hard to tell, and I want to ask you this question because this is a real possibility. So you get Trae Young, and if that pick becomes, I don't know, like, I guess it won't be that high. Like, I was thinking before the season started that if Dallas was terrible, that pick would be enough to possibly get a guy like your R.J. Barrett or Zion Williamson, but I don't think it's going to be a top 2 pick. However, if there's some value down there, like Bol, especially with that foot injury now that he could come up, like, between both Trae Young and that other player, do you think the combination would be worth the Doncic trade, or do you think Doncic is just that good that he will just obliterate any 2 combination of players between Trae Young and whoever gets drafted?
If they're able to get a Zion Williamson, not necessarily R.J. Barrett, because I wouldn't like to see Trae Young with R.J. Barrett on his team. The way that piles the shooters, yeah. I wouldn't like that. But if you get an R.J. Barrett, or if for some reason Bol comes back from his foot injury, which I don't think he will, but that's a conversation for another time.
Absolutely.
I still, it's tough to tell because Luka Doncic is that once in a lifetime player. The way he looks, the poise he has, the way he plays the game, it's good. Don't get me wrong, Trae Young could develop. Like he is him, LeBron James, and Curry are the only people to have 25 points and 15 assists in a rookie game or something like that, and 10 rebounds as a rookie, which is pretty good company to be a part if you're Trae Young. So he could develop into that player like a Curry, Curry light even, where he's that shooter and he can still control the game, which is a great player. But Luka Doncic is just looking like that player right now that if I'm me, I want him on my team for sure.
More than anybody, like a revolutionary type of talent. I totally agree. And again, we're talking about a 19-year-old that doesn't have NBA habits yet. His body is not in final form. Like once and like he hasn't even reached his physical prime yet. Again, 19 years old. Like there's just potential oozing everywhere from this guy, and I think it's clear why he's the rookie of the year.
Yeah, only half the season in, and I bet my life savings
that
he's gonna win rookie of the year.
I don't know how much money that is, but I might join you with that bet. So my second, again, was Jaren Jackson Jr., and third, DeAndre Ayton. My kind of like, honorable mention, I kind of like what Marvin Bagley has done this year. I think he kind of was underwhelming coming into the draft. People saying like, oh, he's an offense-only lefty that can't really shoot threes, plays in the post, and plays no defense. Well, he's kind of disproven a little bit of that. His defense has been a little bit better than I think expected. He still is a primarily left-handed player, doesn't really use his right, which makes him a little bit limited offensively. But you see the tools. You see the ability to go up for those like 2 jumps, second rebounds, and stuff like that. I think he's going to be a really good player, but obviously not in the conversation of this top 3. But I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Yeah, no, I have it reversed. So my second, I have Ayton at second, and I have Jackson at third.
Okay.
Trae Young's right there too. I mean,
I don't blame you for that.
He's putting up the numbers.
Absolutely.
So you got to give him his recognition. But.
Yep, for sure. Okay, let's go to Coach of the Year. We're gonna save the good categories for last. Let's go to Coach of the Year. I'll give you my honorable mention. My honorable mention was Nate McMillan. I think he's done an excellent job this year with the Pacers. Just taking that same group and being able to elevate them to another level has been great. Especially getting all your guys to buy in on defense, I think, is a big thing as well, and they've proven they've done that. So Nate McMillan was my honorable mention. But okay, top 3. Who was your third?
My third would have to be Nick Nurse.
Okay.
Only because the Raptors got rid of the Coach of the Year in Casey.
That's true.
And hired his assistant, which kind of had people scratching their heads because the assistant's going to run along the same lines as the coach that he learned from, in a sense.
I agree.
Where he's going to have the same habits. The culture is not going to change as much because he was a part of the culture when Casey was here.
I subscribe to that theory, so I will back that up. Continue.
So, with that in mind, the way that they're playing the game now, granted, we have Kawhi Leonard now instead of DeMar DeRozan, which does help any coach significantly, the defense it brings and everything. But, taking over that team from a Coach of the Year with a big trade, there's a lot of weight on his shoulders, and he's gone so far. You know what? He's team's second in the East right now, only on win percentage. We got the most wins in the East, but they're in the East. They're looking good. They're looking like a finals appearance isn't out of the question, so I give my third spot to Nick Nurse.
Sure, I can't disagree with that logic. In fact, that logic allowed me to put him second. my third is actually Mike Malone of the Denver Nuggets. Between injuries to Will Barton, Paul Millsap, Gary Harris, you don't have Michael Porter Jr., you don't have Jared Vanderbilt, who are a couple of rookies they were excited about. Isaiah Thomas has been gone out of the lineup. He's taken guys like Torrey Craig, Malik Beasley, Juancho Hernan-Gomez, and turned this Nuggets team right at the top of the West. I mean, they're at the top of the Western Conference right now. And if you consider that long stretch of about a month of injuries that they overcame due to the fact that, obviously, Jokic being a superstar, don't get me wrong, but the defensive ability, although the Nuggets defense has slipped, I saw Matt Miller put out a post about that. But overall, the offense has been great as usual, and I just think that this team has taken another step forward, clearly. They were fighting for an 8 spot last year, and now they're first in the West. So I have to give some credit there, and that's why Mike Malone is my third. Nick Nurse, again, so just some tactical things he's done, putting Serge Ibaka as a full-time center. That's got floated around in the past and never really got put into existence, but now that's been done, and you see Serge having a career year here in Toronto, which has been great, and Jonas Valanciunas having a career year himself. Like, before the thumb injury, he was like a 6th man of the year candidate, and we'll get to that in a bit. But
Nick Nurse is a lineup wizard.
Yeah,
like even Siakam at the center,
exactly.
The way he plays, when he plays with that line of Siakam, Anunoby, Leonard, Green, and Lowry,
is ridiculous defensively.
Insane.
Ridiculous defensively. So I totally agree. Who is your number one?
Well, my number one is actually Mike Malone. I mean,
good.
In my opinion, coach of the year has to be either on the best team or on one of the best teams. And Mike Malone took a team in Denver that was out of the playoffs last year. They were like so low. They made the runs last year. Don't get me wrong. They weren't a terrible team, but they were a team that had not really an identity. You had Jamal Murray trying to get his groove. You had Jokic, who's probably the best big man passer ever.
Agreed.
So they had the pieces. But he's able to put them together in a Western Conference with your Golden States, with your Houston Rockets, with all those teams, and they're first. We're not talking about a team that's third. We're not talking about a team that's fourth. We're talking about a team that's first in the West. Halfway through, if you had to give Coach of the Year right now, it's Mike Malone without question. My second was Nate McMillan because of what he's doing with the Pacers and how they're up there in the East as well. But Mike Malone's got to be my pick for Coach of the Year.
Okay, interesting. I mean, you're looking at my screen, so you know who I'm going to pick. I'm going with Mike Budenholzer, man. I think he's done an excellent job. If you look at the Milwaukee Bucks, they're first in net rating, second in offensive rating, third in defensive rating. He's brought back largely the same roster. There hasn't been a lot of change outside of maybe George Hill and maybe one or two other, and Dellavedova. But outside of those two guys, like, this is largely the same roster that has been taken to another level on both sides of the ball. Their offensive system is absolutely excellent. They've got Giannis running a 1-4, everybody spread out pick and roll where he just dives to the rim and just makes decisions with the ball. If you want to help off Bledsoe, he can knock them down at a decent clip. Middleton, same deal. You want to help off of Tony Snell, also can hit a guy that can hit shots. So I just think that Budenholzer has really done a good job putting all the Milwaukee Bucks players in a position to succeed to the best of their abilities. And I think that when you have a roster like that, when you have guys that are concerned about, where their next contract going to come from in some cases, and making sure that they're, valuable in the eyes of their peers and not just like, just on a specific team, I think boosting that value really rises confidence in players, and I think that that's kind of something unique that I didn't really see any other coach bring to the table, in my opinion. So I know that sounds maybe kind of corny or cheesy, but the Milwaukee Bucks are tied for first in the East, and there's a reason for that, and I think it's part of it's Mike Budenholzer.
See, I'm going to disagree because
okay.
Budenholzer, to me, is doing the same thing he did in Atlanta. He's a regular season coach. He knows how to coach in the regular season. It's a regular season award, though. He knows how to. I know, but he knows how to go deep with his bench. He knows how to go with his players and get where they need to be. He's done it with the Hawks. He's gonna do it here too. It's not surprising to me that he's doing that, but he's not a winner. Okay. He's not. They'll go to the playoffs and they'll get shut down, just like they did every time he was in the playoffs before. The only difference now is that he does have a Giannis on his team to play off, but you can see the way they play, that will not transition into the playoffs as well. I would not be surprised if the Milwaukee Bucks were out the first round of the playoffs.
Wow.
I wouldn't.
So that's some spice on that take. Okay, interesting.
It wouldn't surprise me at all.
Okay, interesting. I like it. Bringing some spiciness, and I guess depending on who that 8 seed is, maybe they run into, a hot Miami team down the stretch that catches them sleeping or something like that. That's possible.
A Charlotte team in the 8th seed could be dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, that's assuming they stay at the top. I mean, if the Bucks slip a little bit, maybe if somehow they get to 5th and maybe the Celtics run up a little bit, they lose home court advantage, you never know, right? So I see the counter argument. I still think Mike Budenholzer has done an excellent job. I agree he hasn't proven himself in the playoffs. But neither have the Raptors, and Nick Nurse was a part of that for 5 years. So I guess you could make that argument as well, right?
But Budenholzer's been to the playoffs
That's
with
true.
the first place team in the East, the Atlanta Hawks.
That is true.
And again, of course, the LeBron James effect was in place, but teams didn't even look like they stood a chance.
It's funny how many teams have been denied championships from LeBron James, right? I guess you used to say the same thing about Jordan back in the day with Ewing and
Carmelo.
Barkley and exactly, and Stockton on that team too. But LeBron has kind of emulated that in this era, I think too. Not to get off topic, but I just kind of found that interesting.
Yeah, no, it's tough. It's just it's playoff basketball is a different animal than regular season basketball. You play with a shorter bench, you play your starters longer minutes, and it's a completely different animal, and you need to be able to adapt your coaching methods to that, which I don't think he does very well.
Absolutely, and there's a reason not every player can play in the playoffs as well, and that's one of the reasons too. Yeah. All right, cool. Moving on. Why don't we do most improved player? How does that sound?
Most improved works for me.
Okay, so my honorable mention, the surprise one, Emmanuel Mudiay, man. Have you watched the Knicks? I know it sounds crazy, but dude, Mudiay, he was on his last fingernail string in the league. He was on a minimum deal. He was literally about to be out of the league. He literally has played himself back into the NBA. I haven't seen, despite Alonzo Trier being there, Frankie Ntilikina, a big-time investment pick that he's now playing over. That you have to be playing well to be playing over to those two guards. You've given contracts to both of them.
Coming into the league, I loved Mudiay.
Me
and
too.
What he brought to the league.
Me too. I thought the Nuggets got a great deal at 7 or 5 or whatever they got him at.
I believe it was 7.
Yeah.
7 or 8. And then when they drafted Jamal Murray, I was confused. I was like, why aren't you going to develop him? I mean, clearly they're right. Jamal Murray's turning into who they thought he was. Yeah. But no, you're right. Mudiay has been a revelation. I mean, granted, it's on the Knicks.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure you could play decent point guard for the Knicks considering the talent they have and who plays there.
Even I don't have that much confidence in myself.
No,
anyway.
but Mudiay has been good. Again, most improved. He's been improved. I don't know about in the top 5, but he's been having a good year on the Knicks. Yeah, so he has improved. You're not wrong. It's just...
Okay, so I also should, we could include a bunch of other players, too. De'Aaron Fox realistically should be at the top of this list. But I can't give the award to a second-year player.
You can't, second year can't win it because you're supposed to improve.
Thank you. So that's why De'Aaron Fox didn't get it. Realistically, he should. He is the most improved player. But he's in his second year, and just by the nature of the award, that's how it works, right?
He should be improving this year. If he didn't, it'd be kind of uh-oh.
Exactly.
It's definitely... De'Aaron Fox is amazing, but he's not in this category for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Actually, I'll start with my number 3. You went last time. My number 3 is Domantas Sabonis, and this was splitting hairs. Actually, you know what? No, I lied. That's my second. I'm going Josh Richardson as my third. I liked Sabonis a little more than Josh Richardson. As I said, this was splitting hairs to me. This was a tough one to go second and third. Josh Richardson, I mentioned him in a previous podcast. He has really taken the reins over there for Miami. Wade is obviously not the creator he used to be. Dragic has been out for some time. No waiters. So they're playing Justice Winslow at point guard for God's sake. So he has really had to have a big time burden, and I mean the stats back it up. He's played 37 games, and again, an elite defender as he was in the all defensive team last year, I believe. 37 games, he's playing 35 minutes a game. That's how much they're relying on him, which is a lot. 18.3 points per game, only shooting 40%. Again, it's hard for me to put too much stock in that number. They don't have anybody else that can credibly shoot the ball in a creative situation, and that's compounded by 15 field goal attempts a game. He is shooting 37% from downtown on 6.8 attempts a game, which is pretty good clip. He's shooting the ball fairly well. It's just around the rim that he's having trouble finishing, it seems. 4 rebounds a game, 3.7 assists, 1.9 turnovers, but again, 1.2 steals, just under league average at 53 true shooting and a 22 usage. So I just, they're fighting for a playoff spot. He's the sole reason they're doing that, and it's really hard not to include him in this situation, especially considering the offensive explosion that has taken place from last year, at least.
I mean, I'd give Josh Richardson the nod over Sabonis simply for their jerseys. I mean, those Miami Heat jerseys.
I love it.
The Earned It jerseys, the pink one, and their city jerseys, the black Miami Vice ones. Oh my god, the best jerseys in the NBA.
I agree. Oddly enough, they haven't won too many. I haven't checked the record, but they haven't won too many games on that pink court or whatever, the Miami Vice court. It seems to be bad luck for them. I'll have to check the numbers on that.
Too bad, because those jerseys are gorgeous.
I agree. I love them too. Josh Richardson was my third. Sabonis was my second. Now, you had Sabonis on here as well?
Well, here's my thing.
Okay.
At third place, insert name of player who's improved. You're right. Josh Richardson, Sabonis, Mudiay, even insert name of. I feel 1 and 2 on my list are so head and shoulders above everyone else on this list that third place doesn't even matter right now. So second. So I'll give you my second place pick.
Okay.
And it's probably the one you have as your first, as I can see on your computer. Okay. And I mean, I'm wearing his jersey right now. It's Pascal Siakam.
Absolutely. He's definitely the most improved player.
He has improved so much over the past time. Maybe that's because his usage rating is up. Maybe it's because his minutes are up. Whatever the case is, he has improved bounds and leaps from where he was. Although that was foreseen coming into the year with the way Harden and Paul and everyone was talking about him in preseason. Everyone saw this coming. Now, little asterisk there. He's barely though the most improved player on the Raps because Serge Ibaka is having a crazy year.
I agree.
And deserves to be in this category as well because last year Serge Ibaka was trash.
Yeah.
He was trash.
I agree. Yeah, especially in the playoffs. Like you saw.
Especially in the playoffs.
Yeah.
This year, he's completely switched his game up, and he has been one of the most consistent players on the Raptors.
He doesn't miss in the paint. Watch him shoot a shot in the paint. He won't miss.
I
promise you.
He's not going to be in this category for the award, but I'm just saying, even just on the on the Raptors team, most improved, he should be in the conversation. However, it is Siakam, and that's why with my number 2, I go Siakam.
Okay. Number 2 is Siakam.
Number 2 is Siakam.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I see. Niko has seen my board. I actually haven't seen Niko's, so this is actually quite interesting. So
2.
So my number 2 is Sabonis. I'll just run through the stats very quickly. Again, 37 games, 25 minutes a game here for Sabonis at 15 points per game. 62% from the field is actually 5th in the NBA. That's pretty good. 83% from downtown. And guess on how many attempts? 0.2 per game. 0.2. He's shooting 83%. Maybe take a few more, Sabonis.
I'd be taking a few more.
Maybe take a few more. But the Pacers don't shoot a lot of threes in general. 9.6 rebounds, 3 assists a game, 2.5 turnovers, 66.6% true shooting, leads the NBA. And obviously, I've talked a lot about true shooting and a lot of stock I put in there as an overall good number that takes your field goal, your 3-point, and your free throw percentage into a number that accurately describes how well you're shooting the basketball. And then 22.4 usage. I don't want to go too deep into Sabonis because I'm leaps and bounds desperate to hear about your number 1. So I love the way Sabonis has played defense this year. They've played him similar to Serge Ibaka as a small ball center. He's been used playing with Miles Turner, but mostly staggered those two guys. I've seen minutes against the Sixers where he's played awesome defense against Embiid. He's obviously shooting the ball incredibly well. He's got that pick and pop game. He should stretch it out to 3. I'm sure he'll get there eventually. But again, son of Arvydas Sabonis, basketball family, you can tell he's going to get very good very quickly.
Yeah, funny story about Sabonis, first of all, is that Nick, who's been on this show before, and me actually used to constantly get into arguments when they were drafted because Sabonis being a Gonzaga boy, Nick loved him.
Yes.
And I was so adamant that the Raptors made the right pick in taking Pirtle before Sabonis. And Nick kept telling me, there's no way Sabonis is the better player. And right now, I have to say, Nick, it's looking like you're right. Sabonis is the better player. However, I stand by my decision that the Raptors made the right choice in taking Pirtle because he was what they needed. And Pirtle ended up netting us Kawhi. So Nick, take that. Raptors still made the right choice. Sabonis didn't deserve to go 10th.
So there... I love how you had to get that out. That is great. Love the podcast content. I agree with both of you. I think they should have taken Sabonis. He was definitely the better player, I thought, in my eyes, at the time, and that's proven to be true. However, you are also right. Pearl netted us Kawhi, and that is more important than anything at this point
and
to
Danny
us Raptor
Green.
fans. And Danny Green, exactly. So... I have to agree with both of you. If I had to put stock in what I think is more, I'm not going to do that, actually. Let's just keep moving. I don't want to make this.
All right, my number 1.
Who's your number 1? Please, it's not Pascal Siakam. You're telling me.
He's number 2.
Okay, go ahead.
My number 1. Now, you got to remember, Most Improved Award is based off the year previous.
Correct.
Who has improved the most since the year previous.
Okay.
So my Most Improved is actually a former MVP.
Derrick Rose?
Mr. Derrick Rose is the most improved player of the year.
I'm going to sit back and listen to this.
Comeback player of the year. Any story you want, Derrick Rose. He is the most interesting story going this year in the NBA. I don't care about LeBron potentially missing the finals for the first time in 10 years, whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
I don't care about James Harden putting up all these numbers and scoring. No, the story of the year is Derrick Rose's comeback. Wow. He is back. And let me say this. Back when Derrick Rose was MVP level, I was never a huge fan.
2011.
He wasn't like it was whatever. Good for him. I don't really care about the Bulls. Good for him. But seeing him come back from all these injuries, all the self-doubt, all the people, all the analysts that get paid to do this, what we're doing for free, these guys get paid to do it, saying he's washed, saying he's done. This guy last year shot 23% beyond the arc. You know what he's shooting this year? 46%.
Oh, yeah.
Last year,
he's high clip.
8.4 points per game. This year's averaging 18.9 points per game. Assists, he's at 1.5 last year. This year, 4.8 assists per game. And this is from the bench. He's not starting.
He is not.
He's putting up all these numbers from the bench. Last year, he averaged, I think, 1 point something threes per game. This year, he's all the way up to over three three-pointers per game average. And he's putting in the buckets, and he's putting this team in a position to win because the Minnesota Timberwolves going into this season were the biggest cluster F of a team with Jimmy Butler saga going off in practice. All these guys, this team was crazy. And then Derrick Rose said, nah, you know what? I got this. And he put on 2011 Derrick Rose's shorts and came out and has revitalized his career. Now, can he do it without Coach Tom Thibodeau now that Tom Thibodeau's gone? He said he can. He actually told everyone who thinks he can't to kill themselves, which was very risque, Derrick.
And he took a tweet apologizing for that one. So,
but if he can keep this up, he's got to be the most improved player. Those knee injuries coming from a man who's also tore his ACL and knows how hard it is to get back out there. I have all the respect in the world for Derrick Rose. I hope he succeeds. I hope he gets back to his MVP form. He should be an all-star this year just for the fact alone that he's been able to come back after everything that had him down for so long. It's crazy. I'm so happy for him, and that's why he's my MIP.
Okay. I love your passion for this Derrick Rose story. Don't get me wrong. And I echo much of what you said. I love the fact that he's been such a comeback player. He went from in Chicago saying like, well, like I want to walk my kids down graduation, right? And I don't want my knees to hurt and stuff like that. And so like you felt that was the end. You felt that was him pulling himself back in, bringing himself into a shell and saying, okay, I have to be a shell of myself if I want to be healthy and go forward. This year has proven that he has abandoned that mentality. He wants to play at an elite level. And I will give you that. It seems like a change in mentality to me from Derrick Rose. Do I think that his training has like drastically improved over this last summer and that he did incredible things to try and get back? No, I don't think he did. I think he did the same stuff, and he just mentally came with something different this year. Something that we hadn't seen in the past. Something that really resembled a 2011 Derrick Rose type mentality, and that 50-point game was like evident of that.
That's the best game of the season so far, was that Derrick Rose game. That was the most fun I've had watching a basketball game.
Absolutely.
A non-playoff game in a while.
Like you get emotional watching him cry after he blocks that shot at the end of the game to win, and like knowing, and that embodies what I'm talking about. Like that spirit was back in him. It felt like,
and that's why. Can I tell you what I think it is? It was Tom Thibodeau.
Do you think it was?
A lot of players do not like Thibodeau's style of coaching, the way he plays his starters deep into games and doesn't give them breaks. And sure, but to me, that's what Derrick Rose needs. That guy that's going to push him that way. He was that way on the Bulls, and then when he came back on the Cavs, he didn't do anything. And the Bulls with Hoiberg, was he there with Hoiberg, I believe, at the end?
I don't think he was.
I'm not too sure, but regardless, you got Tom Thibodeau, a coach that trusts him. And Derrick Rose said it too. He said, you know what? In my mind, I was out of the league when Thibodeau came calling saying, we got a spot for you.
Yeah.
He came, Thibodeau believed in him, gave him the time, and Derrick Rose has returned the investment. Huge. This guy's putting up 18.9 points from the bench. He's going to be my sixth-man player. He's not. Don't worry, it's not a spoiler alert. He's not who I chose for sixth man of the year. But this guy's putting up numbers on the bench when people said he was done. I could read tweets for 2 hours long of people who are paid to do this for a living saying Derrick Rose is washed. Derrick Rose is done. We'll never see Derrick Rose make noise in the league again. And here he is. I mean, granted, I said it too. When he was going,
I'm sure I've said it too.
I said Derrick Rose is done. He's not going to do anything anymore. But he's proving everyone wrong, and it's the greatest story in the NBA.
And I really love it too. I really love this story, and I again echo a lot of what you said. Having said that, Pascal Siakam is my number one.
That's fair. I mean, I'm wearing his jersey, so I mean, I clearly love the guy. I'm cool if he wins it. Don't get me wrong, but
I don't need to go necessarily through the stats for Pascal. Like you don't need to see the stats to see the improvement, that's the easiest way to tell a most improved player.
To see Pascal's improvement and to see how he is as a player, you can't look at his stats. Exactly. You have to watch him play. It is such a treat watching him play. His spin move, the way he can make the right pass, even if it's not an assist, if it's a right pass to get another person open, he just does the intangibles so well this year. And it's just so fun to watch. That you can see it on the court, how he's improved. The stats, I mean, does he have the sexiest stats? No. But
it is what it is.
Compared to last year, they're a lot sexier, that's for sure. But he has improved leaps and bounds from where he is. His intangibles are there. Everything's there. I believe I read like today, like the past 5 games, him and Kawhi have played together. They've averaged 56.7 points. together, which is insane.
They both had career highs in Utah. You like,
I swear, every time I watch a game, it's a new career high for Pascal Siakam. Like the 28-point game, then it was a 30-point game. Now I'm waiting for the 32-point game. Then I'm waiting for that 50-point game that's coming later on in the year. I know you got it in you, Pascal.
I think Kawhi's he's sniffing 50 all over the place to me. I think he's coming for 50 soon. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, you said a lot about what I was going to say. I mean, the spin move has just been unstoppable. Like, he got interviewed, I think, by Josh Lewenberg, who asked him, like, what are you gonna do when guys sit on the spin move? He's like, you can't sit on it.
It's true though. Think about it as a basketball player. Think about that spin move. If you have a guy running at you, if you play the spin move, all he's got to do is go up for a layup and it's in.
Exactly.
So you have to play the layup.
And he's so athletic and long too. Like,
that's the thing. You got to hope that when you see the spin move, you can adjust in time, but you can't because it is lethal.
Absolutely lethal. I totally agree. And he's blazing fast. Like, I listened to Zach Lowe's podcast. He said, he's like, oh yeah, there's guys that come up to me before the game and they're like, oh man, I'm not trying to run tonight. Like, can you just not run up the court? And he starts laughing because he gets that, he's had it once or twice, but like he gets that every like 1 or 2 buckets a game where he just beats you down the court. He just beats a guy down the court. And then the short corner 3 is coming around for a little bit for him too. I mean, I'm not sure right off the stats, but he's shooting 35% from staking. So, I mean, you want to talk about the playoffs and guys, leaving you and having to make those shots to keep them respectable and keep the spacing true. I mean, 40% from the corners. I mean, at this point, you're okay if they're leaving Pascal. He's making them at a decent clip.
Does it bother you that he's only been playing basketball for like 7 years?
I know! Like, that's crazy! That's been crazy as part is like,
it's so frustrating because it's like, I played basketball my whole life and I'm like, oh my god, this guy is just so naturally talented to pick up a basketball that in that short time, make it to the NBA and be the best team in the East. That's right, Milwaukee. I said the best team in the East.
And I echo those sentiments. And I totally agree. And we alluded to this earlier, is that he's playing center. So like you talk about the ability to play center, power forward, be a grab and go guy, initiate offense, switch on the perimeter. Like that is like the supreme value of what the NBA is in today's game. A switchable guy who can knock down credible shots, take the ball and grab it and dribble it and have scoring moves that are decent or be able to beat guys on a consistent basis. So Pascal, number 1 most improved player.
He's spicy.
Spicy P. Alrighty, let's move on. 6th man of the year. This is gonna disappoint you, but my honorable mention is Derrick Rose. We don't have to go into it. We've done some passionate speeches.
We've talked about
it. Okay, I did my number 3. Who is your number 3 this time?
My 3 this time was Derrick Rose.
Okay. Cool.
So we've already talked about that. Okay. We won't rehash it.
Awesome.
But in my voting, he's number 3.
Okay, my 3 was Montrezl Harrell, and I actually had Derrick Rose at 3, and then I went in and looked a little bit harder at what the Clippers were doing, especially earlier in the season, and then I started to look at Montrezl Harrell and watch a little bit of film, and it was just impossible for me to keep him off this list. He has come off the bench on 25 minutes a game, packed in 15 a game on 62% shooting, which is ridiculous. 6 rebounds a game. He's only an assist a game, but he's a steal a game, a block and a half a game. He's giving you the energy and the value on defense. 64% true shooting is incredible, and 21.5% usage off the bench. Like that's
huge.
Pretty good. Like to give you some comparison, like Pascal was at 18. So
he's a starter.
Yeah, exactly. and he's a starter. So that gives you an idea about how much they're actually leaning on him. He's just a beast. He really provides that energy off the bench. He's just a lightning bolt out there. Can play the 4 or the 5. Has a lot of switchable characters, and he just you know what he kind of remind me of. Remember like Kenneth Faried Manimal and what we thought he could be. This kind of reminds me of like what we thought he could be. Like that switchable, big time energy guy that can stuff
big time block and a big dunk on the other end.
Exactly, and that big time energy guy. This seems like a guy that filled out similar to what we thought prime Kenneth Faried might be.
Yeah. Might be. Well, Kenneth Faried had the unfortunate of having to be the star of that team.
That's true.
And that's a role he was never suited to play. Agreed. He's not the star of a team. He's a guy that gives you a spark off a bench. Mm-hmm. But that's what happened with Kenneth Faried. But you're right. Harrell can easily be that type of player for the LA Clippers. So, yeah, I can't argue with you there. At 3, like I said, these awards...
When we get to 3, exactly.
2 and 3 don't mean shit. It's all about who wins.
Yeah. But we'd like to give you...
You gotta do it, yeah. So going on that time, first of all, let me give an honorable mention to Sabonis.
Okay.
He's doing great things off the bench in Indiana. They're using him perfectly off the bench to complement Miles Turner and all them. Mm-hmm. They're doing a great job having him come off the bench. Actually, I was at the Indiana Raptors game when he started because Miles Turner was out, and it was Lithuanian night, so it was a big night for him.
Oh, that's true.
So I'm gonna give him an honorable mention, but my 2 is, you know that Drake song, 6 Men Like Lou Will? Just kidding. It's Spencer Dinwiddie
Okay.
at number 2.
Okay.
And I'm not going to go too much into it because I can see who your number 1 is. And I know you got the stats behind you.
Yes.
But what Dinwiddie is doing in Brooklyn right now is insane.
I love his game. I just love his game.
Brooklyn has been such a fun team to watch, and a team that everyone thought would be absolute trash is pretty damn good. They're in the 8th seed right now in the East. Like, no one would have put Brooklyn in a playoff spot this year after their years of mismanagement and trading away every single pick into the year 2082 to get Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. Paul Pierce sucks. What up? But yeah, so they've done so much for this team. And D'Angelo Russell's another one. D'Angelo Russell, Jared Allen, and Spencer Dinwiddie have been playing out of their minds to get this team to the 8th spot. And you know what? Good for them. I want to see it keep coming. I want to see them make 6th or 5th place because that's not a team I want to see in the first round of the playoffs if I'm the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And yeah, I mean, we'll leak it right here. Like, Sabonis, my number 2. We talked about him. Like, again, the usage has been awesome for Sabonis. Like, he's been just incredible defensively. Like, offensively, he's been great. Best true shooting in the league. But yeah, Dinwiddie's my number 1. Like, Dinwiddie is my 6th man of the year. And because, like, he hasn't missed a game, 42 games. And you want to tell how easy it is about how Brooklyn feels about Spencer Dinwiddie? Okay, D'Angelo Russell is their starting point guard, and he's 22 years old, right? Dinwiddie is 25. Who'd they give the extension to?
Yeah, no, I know. That's it. I mean, they were smart to give him the extension. And
I agree.
And he, at the same time, too, took a risk because if he stayed playing this well, he might have been able to grab some more in the offseason.
Very true.
But that contract, the comfort of having that, it was a smart play on both sides.
I agree. But despite that, I think Dinwiddie has been, like, amazing. Like I said, I love his game. Like, I love what he has, just an abundance of separation moves. There's a reason he's closing games for the Nets, every game for the Nets, and why they signed to that extension. His ability to create off the dribble is incredible, and to finish in isolation. Like, he's very good in isolation. Like, if you switch a big onto him, like, he's likely going to get cooked via a step back 3 or just, a drive to the rim. Kind of Harden-like. Obviously, I don't want to compare anybody to Harden because he's his own beast, but kind of in that sort of vein. And again, variety of step back moves, and just an underrated playmaker too. Like, 5 assists a game off the bench. That's crazy to me. And again, 42 games, 82 minutes a game, 17 points per game on 46% shooting. He's shooting 12 shots a game to get 46%. He's shooting 36% from downtown on 5.4 attempts. And that 36% is not coming on, catch and shoots. It's coming off, I'm going to isolate you and take a difficult step back 3, which, lends a little more credibility to that number as well.
Yeah, he created his own shots for sure.
Exactly. 60% sure shooting and 24% usage. So they clearly need him, especially at the end of games, to create, especially as a secondary or sometimes a primary ball handler. I guess they kind of exchange Russell and Dinwiddie in closing games depending on the night, right? So, but yeah, Dinwiddie's been my guy. I love his game. I think he's been very effective for the Nets this year, and part of the reason they're not in the lottery right now is because of him.
Oh, for sure. Well, Jared Allen, too, has been having a big year.
And D'Angelo Russell.
And D'Angelo Russell's another player that's had a big year. That whole Brooklyn team's fun to watch.
Absolutely.
And now Dinwiddie would be my number 1, and in 2 games, he might have to be because, according to the rules, in order to qualify for the 6th man, you can't start more games than you've sat.
Yes.
And right now, my pick for number 1 is right on that cusp.
Who is that?
Julius Randle.
Oh, that is why I didn't include him in the list. That's exactly why I didn't include him.
He's on the cusp. Now, who knows if he goes to and stays a starter most of the season?
Because Mirotic is out for so long because they're going to need him, right?
Exactly. Who knows if he goes back to the bench? We'll see what happens. But as of right now, we're doing midseason awards, and right now he qualifies.
Okay.
So he is my number 1. I mean, he's averaging almost 20 and 10 when he's been coming off the bench. I believe he's played 40 games. He started 20. So, like I'm telling you, he's right on the cusp there.
Fair enough.
He has not started more games than he's played. It's the tie right now.
Okay, so make your argument under the assumption that he counts.
20 and 10 off the bench with a 25% usage rate. That's my argument. How are you averaging 20 and 10?
Good argument.
As a big man on a team with Anthony Davis, how are you averaging those numbers? It's insane.
That is insane.
It's insane. And I know, 6th man of the year tends to be a guard award.
That is true.
Look at the past few years.
A scoring award, realistically.
Yes. Yeah. Crawford,
Lou Will.
Even back a few years, you want to go Leandro Barbosa when he was running at Manu Ginobili, all of them. True. It's not too often you see a big man win this award. But when you're averaging 20 and 10 on a team with probably one of the best big men in the game, and you're still getting your numbers off the bench, no less, that's 6th man of the year for me right there.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, that is definitely a solid argument. I think the only counter argument would be just the Pels' position in the West, especially with Anthony Davis been healthy the whole year. Drew Holiday there. Mirotic was playing out of his damn mind before he got hurt, like another 20-point per game scorer. Like, I guess the vote, it'll come to the voters' mind, like, okay, great. Like, why aren't the Pelicans better, though? I think that will probably be the argument in the end that kind of takes him out of the conversation.
Because they got a dumbass name and a dumbass color scheme. New Orleans sucks. I hate the Saints. Pelicans are okay.
Well, tell them you're an Atlanta Falcons fan first. Then at least, like, at least don't just say it with no context.
No, but actually, Anthony Davis is a tremendous player. Their forwards are tremendous. I don't have faith in their guard play, and that's why they've been losing. Their guard play lets them down 9 times out of 10. Holiday's a good enough point guard. They don't need good enough. They need someone who can facilitate AD to play his game. They need someone who can do that, and it's not Holiday. They just the team's a mess. That whole team's always been a mess. They've never found their footing. I mean,
they need a wing.
Yeah.
Like, Etuan Moore is playing at the 3, I'm pretty sure. Like, that's just not going to get it done.
Raptor killer, Etuan Moore.
Yeah. Oh, God, that guy is such a good floater.
Shout out to Blake Murphy and the Raptor killer.
Yeah. All right, 6th man of the year. Yeah, I got Dinwiddie, Sabonis 2nd, and Harrell 3rd. And what was your order one more time?
Randall, Dinwiddie, and Derrick Rose.
Okay, perfect. All right, we're going on. So what do we got here? 2 awards left. All right, we're going to save the best for last. So let's go Defensive Player of the Year. I need to be upfront. This was a difficult one for me to pick. This was not really that easy. It's a very underwhelming field this year, I feel.
Defensive Player of the Year is
and it's a hard one to do mid-season, too.
It's the hardest one to do mid-season. You need a whole season of... Because players can play defense for half a year.
It's true.
It's be able to continue it over 82 games, deliver night in, night out on the defensive end of the board. It's the same reason why it's always the same few guys at the end of the year being argued over the award. There's always your Draymond Greens, your not DeMarcus Cousins, your Rudy Goberts, your Kawhi Leonards. It's the same people every year. Joel Embiid. It's the same people because it's the same people that put up the defensive statistics. I'm a big believer that Defensive Player of the Year is a dumb award because it doesn't look at the guy's actual defensive contributions, because that doesn't always show up in the stat sheet.
I agree.
Just because you don't get as many blocks or as many rebounds. Joel Embiid is always in there as a Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
To me, he should never be top 3. He's a great defensive player, don't get me wrong, but he's not the top in the league at defense.
And he's not in my top 3 either.
Sure, he rakes down rebounds.
Yeah.
Sure, he gets blocks. Sure, he makes those big-time plays. But, I mean, should he be there?
I mean, and then you go, that's what I mean. That's why I didn't have him in there. And then you go digging into, some of the defensive stats with Philly, and you realize, that it's not that good, and some of the defensive stats with Embiid are not that good. And, I know some of the defensive stats sometimes, don't tell the whole story. And don't get me wrong, I do watch the game. I think it's clear by this podcast, and so do you, Nico. So we do have some eye tests here to go to back up these stats.
And don't get me wrong, yeah. Embiid is a great defensive player.
He is.
But he's not a perennial defensive player that, oh my God, his defense is the best and just definitely helps his team win games. It doesn't.
Yeah.
His offense does.
Agreed.
His defense helps, but it's not the reason that Philly is playing the way Philly is.
Yeah, I totally agree. My 3rd was Draymond Green. You look at Golden State's defense this year, it's been pretty, underwhelming. I think they're 17th in defensive rating, if I'm not mistaken. But again, this is just kind of an eye test for me. Again, you talk about 2 and 3 not meaning shit. This is kind of one of those things. I've still kind of seen the effort there from Draymond. I haven't really seen him slip too much. Obviously every player has their lapses, don't get me wrong, but he's still been a strong player, and he's been adamant in the media about how he still wants to win Defensive Player of the Year this year. And I think I think the effort shows behind that. So my 3rd was Draymond Green. Did you have a 3 in this conversation?
Yeah.
Okay.
My 3rd was Rudy Gobert.
Okay.
He's a great defensive player. I mean,
that's if he's not a great defensive player, he's not providing much value otherwise.
He's always there. His height, his reach, everything that he does on the defensive end is right. I mean, Utah did have that little spell there where their defense was absolutely atrocious. But it seems like if they've gotten back on their right footing, and he's of course the main player in that defensive unit. He's a great defensive player. He's always going to be in this conversation as long as he's in the league playing the way he does. I don't see how he's not. He could be higher on the list, sure, but 3's where I have him.
Yeah, fair enough. He's actually my 2. perfect segue, I guess. So yeah, I mean, the Jazz are 20-21. Had a bit of a bad loss last night against Milwaukee as well, but the defensive rating is still 105.2, which is good for fifth in the NBA. And again, they're 20-21. I get that, but defensive rating when Gobert is on the court is at 102.1, which is very good. Like, I mean, there's not a single offense in the league that's averaging less than 100 points a game this year.
No,
so I mean, like, so you really have to like adjust your your settings. You know what I mean? Of what a good defensive rating is. He's still affecting shots at the rim. Obviously, I see that via the eye test. But he wasn't my number one, and we'll get to why that is in a second.
Yeah, well, my number two is the man that cooked Rudy Gobert for like 1 million reverse layups when they played, and that's Kawhi Leonard.
Oh,
I mean, I know it's a defensive award. I'm just going on that because Rudy Gobert looked terrible in the paint when Kawhi was coming at him. 45 points without 1-3, and Rudy Gobert's there. He can't win. He can't win Defensive Player of the Year after that performance alone.
But, a good point,
but Kawhi is my second, and the reason he's my second is because the guy he just shuts down the other. You look at the NBA, the most dominating players usually are wings. Your LeBron Jameses, your Paul Georges, your all those type of players. They're always those wing guys, and Kawhi shuts them down. That's what I'm saying. You can't look at stats to see how valuable a player like Kawhi is on defense, which I hope a player like OG Anunoby turns into. Thanks for watching, Kawhi. But just the way he is on defense, the way he shuts down other teams' players and just takes them out of the equation completely, it's so good. He's just so good at that, which is why he's my second choice for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, and I can't really argue with that. I mean, looking back, I probably should have had him in here somewhere now that I think about it. But, just watching the Raptor games, we watch every single one. I just seen a couple lapses from him this year, just kind of uncharacteristic.
He's still coming back from an injury, right?
Yeah, that's true. And
new
you
team, new defensive scheming and everything.
That's true.
For him.
And you still see those plays. Remember that I think it was against the Wolves, I think Wiggins tried to beat him backdoor, and he just dove for that ball and just like
the no look steal.
The no look steal. Like, you still see like those plays like that, and those like spectacular plays where he just saves balls or just snatches the cookies from guys like when they're trying to dribble around him. Like, you still see those. Those are still there. I think just off the ball, I've seen him get beat on a couple back cuts here and there, and I just don't know. I just haven't felt the impact. And don't get me wrong. Again, he would probably be number 4 here on the best defensive players of the year so far. So let's not understate what I'm saying here. But I just haven't felt like the 100% like 2016 Defensive Player of the Year Kawhi.
You've said it best, though, earlier when you talked about Gobert and the defensive rating being 102.
Yeah.
It's a different league we're in now.
It's true.
Defense is a lot harder to play because as soon as you touch a guy, it's a foul now. You can't push off anymore. Like, there's so many things you can't do in the defensive end, which is why scoring is at such a record high this year. So really, Defensive Player of the Year, who cares? If you're letting the teams average over 100 points a game on you, is your defense even good? No one's defense is good anymore. No one plays good defense. It all just mediocre to, okay, they made a decent play here, they made a decent play there, because defenses now they're hit tied.
Yeah.
I'm LeBron James playing with my hands behind my back guarding James Harden because you can't touch people anymore. It's so hard to play defense like that. It's less about the team's defense and more about the team's defense hoping the other team's on a cold streak and getting the boards and doing what they need to do on that end.
I still think there's something to be said about forcing some of those misses, though, is having good fundamentals. And maybe that's more of a team thing now than it is an individual player thing. Because I still think that well-connected 5-man team defenses can be very disruptive to offenses. But I think I kind of tend to agree with you, whereas like a single player used to be able to kind of shut down everything, where you kind of put him on the best player and just call it a night, you're going to be good, like he's not going to get much. Now, not really. The league tailors to the offensive player. They're letting him go a little bit. The clutching and the grabbing is no longer a thing, coming around screens and stuff like that. And so, like, maybe that's a way to say, like, okay, like the defense isn't as good anymore, or maybe it's an opportunity, and this is how I kind of lean toward it, is to kind of appreciate the good defense when you see it in those sparring moments and recognize that although it may not be important as it used to be, the fact that people are still playing it still adds value. And even though if that value may not contribute to winning as much as it used to, given this offensive league, I still think it's something to look out for, like, and keep an eye on.
Of course, it's still important. Of course, they still have to go out there and they still got to put an effort into guarding their opponents. If not, their team's just going to put up 180 points on them. Like, they have to play defense. Look at the All-Star games. That's what happens when you don't play defense.
Exactly.
However, I just don't think defense, like being Defensive Player of the Year, is as important this year as it has been before.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you.
You have a defensive-minded player now. It's a lot harder for him to be a big impact than it would have been 4 or 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way the league has gone. It's a more offensive-minded league. Every league is like that way now, though, too. Every league wants the scoring to be as high as possible, so it's more exciting, so more people watch.
Mm-hmm.
If basketball games were ending 82-76, no one would want to watch. Trust me, I was at the game.
I would, but I know a lot of people wouldn't.
I was at the game 2 weeks ago when it was Raptors Bulls, and I think Raptors put up 10 or 12 points in the first quarter. I almost left. I was like, this is embarrassing. Thank God it was against the Bulls, so we could come back and still win that game because the Bulls are terrible.
Learn to play better defense and learn how to adjust to these offensive systems, and maybe that's the next wave of teams that win championships. So these this is how the league evolves, right? Like you go back and you go forth. Like defense wins championships, now offense. Okay, now we've adjusted. You know what I mean? So right now it seems like the offense has more so adjusted to the defense, but who knows who's going to make that first step to kind of balance it the other way?
Refs need to stop being so quick on the whistle.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I kind of agree with that. Okay, let's jump to number one here. My number one is Paul George. OKC's defensive rating this year as a team is 101.7. That's first in the NBA, and they're the third best in the West. And Paul George takes on the best wing every night. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. The argument against him, obviously, the fact that he has talented wing defenders around him, Jeremy Grant, Hamidou Diallo, Steven Adams, obviously an anchor in the paint there. And then you see that he's second in steals, and then he's second in defensive win shares behind Will Barton, who doesn't even qualify.
He doesn't.
And yeah, and if you watch games clearly, you can obviously he impacts winning on that end. And I don't think I need to make a better argument than that.
He's my one as well, so we can just brush by this and get to MVP.
Okay, beautiful.
However, the only thing I want to say is, I know you said he's got awesome defenders around him. They're awesome because he allows them to be.
Yeah.
If Paul George doesn't play the way he's playing, these are just defenders that would be good to average defenders. Jeremy Grant, he's a good player. Mm-hmm. He's a lot better with Paul George helping him out.
I agree.
Steven Adams is a great player. He's a great defensive presence. Don't get me wrong. Hamidou Diallo is a great defensive player, but they're all better because of what Paul George is doing on the defensive end. He's by far the best defensive player in the league this year. He's going to run away with this award if he keeps playing the same way he's been playing these first 40-some-odd games.
Yeah, and we should give, just quickly too, and not that he's in this conversation for me at all, but I got to give some credit to Westbrook. I think he's been playing greater defense this year. He's really kind of taken back on the whole, Westbrook mentality, played within the system a little bit more, so I just figured I would give him a shout out because I've been critical of him in the past, and I feel that's fair. So.
Yeah, hey, your podcast, man. Do you.
Awesome. All right. The last but not least, how long have we been going here? About 51 minutes. We've taken 51 minutes to get to the MVP.
Nine minutes for MVP. Let's make this a nice hour.
Okay, let's see if we can do it. All right, so my number 4 honorable mention is LeBron James.
LeBron James.
Yeah, you can go look at the stats yourself. I'm not going to pull those up for you. Just know he was my 4th. Okay, my 3rd is Kawhi Leonard.
Okay.
Kawhi Leonard. I'm just we're going to try to get this quick. 32 games he's played so far, 35 minutes per game. He's averaging 27 points a game, which is 6th in the NBA, and he's doing that on 50% field goal percentage, shooting 19 shots to get that 50%. 36.2% from downtown, 4.7 attempts to get that 36.2 3-point percentage. And then we got 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 turnovers a game, but 1.8 steals, 61% true shooting, and 30% usage. My argument basically is the Raptors are the best team in the league at the moment. Like you said, you said the East, I say the league.
Yeah, that's fair.
You say the league, and despite missing 10 games or so, Kawhi's been huge, especially in that part where Lowry has been out with the back issues. He's been carrying that team. We saw that in Utah. We saw that with the 37. I think it was against, I don't remember who it was against, but he had a couple awesome, great games. I think he's been about 90% of what he has been. I think that's probably a fair assessment of of MVP Kawhi, like 90% of that.
Yeah.
And obviously plays on both ends of the floors, and big reason why the Raptors are top 10 in offensive rating and defensive rating. So
Listen.
that's it.
I love Kawhi. You don't need to sell it on me, but okay. I got a question for you.
Sure.
So Kawhi's missed 10 games.
10 games.
What's the Raptors' record without him?
Oh, let's check.
You don't need to check.
Okay.
It's 8-1 or 8-2 or 9-1.
Okay.
You know what that tells me? He's a great player. Not that valuable in the regular season because they don't need him to win. You know what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong.
That's the argument against him. That's true.
That's my if me playing devil's advocate, that would be what I would say against him because I think they need Kawhi 100% in the playoffs come playoff time. But this Raptors team plays well enough and is coached well enough that Kawhi isn't the most valuable. You could argue that Lowry's the most valuable player on that team when you talk about value to the team because of what he provides them.
I was about to say, and I tell my dad this too. Yeah, okay, we might not. And just quick Raptors talk here. We might not be going to the finals if we lose Kawhi, but we're sure the hell not going to the finals if we lose Kyle either. And that's the big point.
There's no one to be a playmaker from the point. I love Van Vliet. I love DeLon Wright. but they're not there yet.
Nope.
I've heard people say, okay, what if we get Jeremy Lin? What if we get Bradley Beal? No, you know what? We need that leadership that Lowry brings. Also, he has the best opening in the game with the high fives going low. But when Lowry's not there, the team is very different. When Kawhi's not there, the team's different, but still, they're doing just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like 8-1, 8-2, 9-1, whatever it is without Leonard, that's insane. How can most valuable? If you're looking at the Raptors' best player, Kawhi, hands down. Most valuable, I'd even give it to Lowry over Kawhi at this point in the season.
Interesting. Okay, so with that being said, who's your 3?
My third is LeBron James.
Okay, fair enough.
Listen, LeBron, his team is 1-5 since he's been out. That shows you the value that he's been on that team. Mm-hmm. They're 20-14 with him in the lineup. They're 16-8 after that Raptors game. That to me was a real eye opener to LeBron after they got thrashed by the Raptors and it wasn't even close. Mm-hmm. From that point on, to me, it was LeBron waking up saying, you know what, I'm taking over again. And they've been 16-8 in that stretch. Okay. Him gone, they're 1-5. That to me defines value.
I agree.
He is 100% the most valuable player on that team. He's 100% the most valuable player of the NBA. He needs to get back on the court, but because he's missed a few games. He's missed 6 now. That's why he's my third. Okay. If he played every game and they were still in this role, he'd be my number 1 easily. Best player in the NBA, most valuable to any team he's on. Guy's huge.
Okay, awesome. I agree with your argument. Again, it was splitting hairs between Kawhi and LeBron. So the fact that you have him third doesn't bother me whatsoever. So my second is Giannis. 37 games for Giannis, 33 minutes a game, which is lower than a lot of these other MVP candidates. 26.6 points per game on 58% field goal percentage, shooting 17 shots a game. He's got a 17% three-pointer, but honestly, does he need the three-pointer at this point? At this point, is there anything else other than three-pointers stopping Giannis from becoming the best in the NBA?
And that muscular should be able to move and dribble the ball and move around the way he does. It doesn't seem humanly possible. It's insane. We're seeing a once-in-a-lifetime athlete here, and he is crazy. He is, as soon as LeBron James loses a step, Giannis is the best player in the league, hands down.
Okay, well, I don't want to continue that argument because we can go on for another hour and a half, but
can I?
Go ahead.
The reason I have Giannis as second and not first is because I feel, again, it goes to the whole most valuable player.
Okay.
You take him off the team. He's missed 2 games, so nothing much. Mm-hmm. 1 game, they won by 16, but it was against the Cavs. Mm-hmm. Who cares? Cavs, you can beat them with anyone.
Sure.
But they beat the Raptors by 15 without Giannis. Mm-hmm. And you know what that showed me? It showed me that when Giannis doesn't play, they move the ball around better, they take more threes, they make more threes, and they're able to space the floor better, and they don't have to... I don't want to say Giannis is a liability on offense when he doesn't have the ball in his hands, but because he's not. Mm-hmm. He's a great player even without the ball in his hands.
His screen setting creates gravity as well.
Yes, but he doesn't space the floor
enough.
Enough.
Okay.
And you can see it when they play without him. Mm-hmm. Like when they're not with him, this guy, they beat the Raptors by 15 handedly. Like it wasn't even close. I remember watching that game thinking, oh my God, I wish Giannis was playing because Giannis would take his usage rating, of course, is way up there. Mm-hmm. So when he's playing Middleton, Bledsoe, Raptor killer Thon Maker, they're not getting all those chances at scoring, which they do when he's not there. So it's just, is there value? It's tough to tell. Don't get me wrong, he's still one of the best players in the league. He's number 2 on my list. So, I mean, obviously I think highly of him. But that was the only reason I put him a bit lower.
Okay, fair enough. And just finishing off the stats here, 12 rebounds a game, 6 assists. Yeah, he's 4 turnovers, but he's got the ball in his hands quite a bit, as you'll see. 1.3 steals, 1.6 blocks, 30% usage, 63.1% true shooting, and 27.6 defensive rebound percentage, which is kind of crazy because he's in a center. Not even a center, and he's just grabbing just these defensive rebounds like you've never seen before. So.
He also did chirp The Rock the other day. Kawhi would never make that mistake, Giannis, because... Do you actually know what Giannis' middle name is?
I don't.
It doesn't matter what Giannis' middle name is.
I didn't see the clip. I thought you were actually asking me. That's hilarious. Okay, number 1, and
you hit your one first.
Okay, so this. I wanted to leave this for last because this is where I not that I fear this disagreement, but I foresee a possible disagreement coming. Okay.
Oh, there's disagreement. I can see who your number 1 is.
Okay, awesome. So my number 1. Is James Harden. James Harden is just ridiculous. James Harden, at this point, has done stuff that only Kobe and Jordan have done. And if he's not MVP, then what else does he need to do at this point to be an MVP? I don't know. So I'm going to read off the stats and you'll understand why, okay? He's played 36 games. 37 minutes per game. You want to talk about value? 37 minutes a night, okay? 33.7 points per game. That's first in the NBA by 5 points. By 5 points, okay? 22 shots a game, and he shoots 43% from the field. Sounds ugly, right? Let's keep watching. 38.6% from downtown, shooting 12 threes a game. You want to talk about efficiency of taking those step back threes? He doesn't take catch and shoot threes. The only ones he takes are off the dribble, and he makes them at 38% on 12 a night. Ridiculous. 6 rebounds a game, 8.7 assists. That's fourth in the NBA. 5.6 turnovers. That
ugly.
leads the NBA.
Ugly.
That leads the NBA.
I don't know if you want to lead the NBA, and that's that.
No, you do not. That is true. That leads the NBA. 2 steals a game is fifth in the NBA. 38% usage leads the NBA by almost 8%. 8%. And he has 62% true shooting. So we've seen the numbers, right? The 40 points per game over the last 12 and all this crazy ridiculous, right? You want to talk about value? Where would this team be without Harden?
Well, they were terrible with Harden and Paul to start the season. They were terrible with Harden without Paul for a bit of the season. And now that Harden's turned it on, yeah, they're doing great. You're right, 100%. He is super valuable to that team. But to me, the Houston Rockets are not a good team this year. The way they're playing, you know what? They're going to get up there. Houston doesn't scare me in the slightest.
They're there.
They don't scare me in the slightest.
3.5 games out of first.
Yeah, but that's also fifth in the West. There's 4 teams ahead of us.
Tied for fourth. Look how tight it is, dude. And then it drops off when you get to 9 and 5th. But dude, the Rockets are tied for fourth in the West right here.
The Warriors are better than the Rockets. The Thunder are better than the Rockets.
I'm not even sure that's true.
The Nuggets have looked like they're better than the Rockets. The Clippers are better with LeBron back. The Lakers are better than the Rockets.
Dude, the Nuggets lost to the Rockets last night without CP3.
They need CP3 to stay out.
They do. Oh, well, for him to win the MVP.
No, they need CP3 to stay out because when he was there, that team was garbage. That team was 14th for the longest time.
Oh, I don't think it was CP3's fault. I think they kind of flipped a switch, especially cutting, Michael Carter-Williams and getting the right guys into the rotation, especially James Ennis came back, things of that nature. But, dude, he's just been carrying this team, like 38% usage. 38% usage has gotten tied for fourth in the Western Conference. Dude, they were like 14th. We were considering, are they even going to make the playoffs? And then over the last 20 games, which is more than 20 games actually, which is half of the sample size that we're using, he's been by far the best player in the NBA. By far. And
well,
dude, even
course.
before he was on this run, he was still averaging 30 a game.
Yeah, I mean, when refs don't call anything on you and you're allowed to travel every single shot.
Oh, no. This is where the fear came in.
When you're allowed to travel on every single step back three, you're going to make a lot of threes when they're open because you took 8 steps. When refs call literally every time someone touches you, you're going to get 13 free throw attempts a game and make a lot of points from there. James Harden is everything that's wrong with the new NBA.
Oh, no.
Let me tell you why.
Oh, no.
We talked about it, how defense doesn't mean anything no more, how defense just, any touch, now you get it. That's James Harden effect. That's the James Harden effect. His little waits till you reach in and then quickly shoot, get the foul. Sometimes he makes them, sometimes he does it for the and one. Regardless, he's shooting free throws. James Harden's stupid, I'm going to take my gather and then another quick step back, which is literally, oh my God, I counted.
But every player does that move though.
Really? Curry got called on it a few games ago.
But that was
and right away. And what does he do?
He puts the 1-3 on his chest.
Up because he knows if it was Harden, that wouldn't be called. I watched, no one does it like Harden. No one. You people, you know what? Traveling in the NBA, sure, you know what? It happens every now and then. Harden's is
every game.
Harden's is so blatant. I count. He does his gather is the 2 steps, and then he does another 2, and the rest will say no. The first gather doesn't count because the ball's kind of in the air, and he's still taking his steps. No, it's a travel in every sense of the word. He travels every shot he takes, and it's embarrassing.
No, it's not.
It is embarrassing for the league when you see these obvious calls, and then you have the NBA referees on Twitter saying, "Oh yeah, we missed that one." You think?
Well,
really? Please.
Well, you're citing one specific double step back example in which the refs missed, and that one Harden even admitted he traveled. So if we're taking that sole example and we're using that as the sample size for all of Harden's moves that he does to get these points, then I agree with you. But that one was like an outlier.
Size.
But that one was an outlier. He doesn't do that move ever.
That's the outlier because that one was 6 steps I counted.
That was it was like
his normal one. Is they called it a 3-step. The NBA refs, when they relooked, they said, yeah, that's what actually 3 steps. It still looked like 5.
It looked like 4 to me.
He normally does that but without taking the extra jump back.
Exactly.
And it's a travel. They say it's not a travel. It is a travel.
I've seen multiple players use that same step back move. Curry uses that move, and not just the example you're talking about against the Kings. I see him off the dribble, you know what I mean? Like, be able to use, like you're seeing it, obviously on the podcast you can't see, but you dribble between the legs, you hang, and then that little hang zero step is the way you use that push-out move, and that's what Harden does. Like, he'll come, bounce out, and use that extra step to come back, but every player use that move. I'll even name the players that use it. I know LeBron used that move. I've seen, what's his name? Kyrie use that move. He'll pull back and then use that extra step. There's a ton of guys that use that move.
There's the difference, though, what I've noticed. And listen, don't get me wrong. James Harden's getting away with it. Keep going, man. Keep doing it. I mean, it makes me hate you because of the way you're doing it, because you're not on the Raptors. If you're on the Raptors, I'd love you for it. Shout out to that Jonas Valanciunas, James Harden trade that never happened. But my thing is, keep doing it if you can. But when you actually look at him going, everyone does. They push back, and that's legal. What James Harden does is he takes a step and then pushes back again into his hop step, which to me is a travel every single time. Because if you look at him, he does get that much more open than everyone else in that step. Why? Because he's taking an extra step. It's not rocket science. He's gathering more space between him and the defender, and it's giving him more points. Look at all the shots he's taking. Look at all those points. I'm not disagreeing. His stats, if you look strictly statistical points, he is the MVP. He's definitely the most valuable player on that team. 100% to the name of the award. He's that award to that team for sure. I just don't want to give it to him again. He won it last year, and he pisses me off when I watch him play. So I'm not giving it to him because I have the choice.
Okay, fair enough. Now, I want to counter your point that you're saying he creates a lot of space off that step back. Yes, he does. But have you considered this? Like, instead of looking at the move itself, which I still contend to this day that I don't think it's a travel because the refs have been calling it, other players have been using the same move. It's the reason they're doing that is because they know that if they press up on him and try to push him or try to make him drive, he's going to use that off arm to create that foul. And so you have to keep your hands back, stay the space, and then when you can't press up on him and he sees your hands back and that you're, a foot or so away because he's going to drive by you and create the foul, then his ability to, use that quick step back and use that little, gather step is what creates the space, in my opinion. It's the threat of the drive and the foul that creates the space, not the move itself.
You can't play defense on him because...
You can't. He's unguardable.
Yeah, because he'll do his step back travel, which I did air quotes there for Derek's sake.
Thank you.
To get an open shot, or he'll get a foul on you because the refs are quick with the whistle. Who's the most respected player in the NBA, in your opinion?
LeBron James.
Thank you. How did LeBron James guard James Harden? With his hands behind
to prove a point,
his
though.
back. And what's that point? That the refs are way too quick with the whistle. Only Harden. Who else has LeBron James guarded with his hands behind his back?
Actually, in that clip, he was guarding Chris Paul with his hands behind his back.
Well, that too. But it's the Rockets in a sense of the word. It's with Chris Paul and it's with James Harden. It's the way James plays. James Harden, sorry, not LeBron James. It's the way James Harden plays that the refs are too quick with that whistle when he quickly goes. And then, which opens up for them to take the step back, make sure their hands aren't out, and that gives him, when he does his stupid little travel step back, that extra amount of space that he needs to put in that three. It's one of those things, watching him, I'm not a fan of that basketball. I like my basketball hard, I like it gritty. I don't like watching Harden play because it's not... To me, it's people wanting to see points scored. It's people wanting to see those big threes. It's people wanting to see the beard. It's pisses me off because it's not basketball. I want to see a guy right in his face defending him and not have to worry if Harden moves the ball into his hands, the other guy's getting a foul. That's terrible basketball, and it's not for me. That's why Harden isn't my MVP. I need someone who's tough as nails on the defensive end. I need someone who's doing all the numbers on the offensive end. And that, my friends, is Paul George, the defensive player of the year and the MVP. Hell, give him the most improved player of the year. If he came off the bench, he'd be the sixth man of the year because Paul George has been playing out of his mind. And I have never been a Paul George supporter, ever, because of how much he cooked us in the playoffs.
Yeah, he did cook us.
That's why I have never been a Paul George stan, but I'm all in on him this year. It's not Westbrook's team anymore, the Thunder. The Thunder are Paul George's team. That guy is easily the defensive player of the year, first of all. And I mean, MVP should be both ends of the court. Mm-hmm. So if you're defensive player of the year, you're already halfway there to MVP.
That's true.
Put into the fact...
Well, the counter argument to that, though, is our conversation about the value of defense.
You're right. But exactly. But he's putting defensive player of the year caliber on the floor.
That is true.
With 26.8 points per game, with 8 rebounds per game, with 4 assists per game, and with 2.2 steals per game. And he's only missed one game this year, which was against the lowly Phoenix Suns, and they won that game by... they killed Phoenix that game, but that's not because Paul George was playing. It's because the Phoenix Suns suck.
That's true.
So only missing the one game. And Oklahoma started slow. That 0-4 start, Westbrook got back. They were wondering if they were going to get in rhythm. And everyone's like, oh, Paul George, you might have made a mistake re-upping here in Oklahoma. And then they've just caught fire. They're a half game behind the Golden State Warriors, who are, in my opinion, the best team in the West still. They're the bar. Sure, the Nuggets are in first. Whatever. The Warriors are the bar. They're half a game back of the Warriors. They are looking like a team possessed. Paul George is leading this team defensively. He's putting up great offensive numbers, and he's made the load easier on Westbrook, too.
He has, and I alluded to that earlier. You're right.
Yeah, so, I mean, we already talked about all the great stuff in the Defensive Player of the Year. He is my MVP because if I'm picking the most valuable player, you need a guy that's going to be offensively talented, defensively talented, intangibly talented. He makes his team better. He makes, like we were saying, with all his defenders around him, Steven Adams, Hamidou Diallo, all of them, they play better. Wait till Andre Robertson gets back next year.
We'll see. Yeah, next year you're right. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking. But that team is scary defensively. It, like when the Rockets face Oklahoma in the playoffs. I'd be okay with Paul George guarding James Harden because I feel like Paul George could stop those stupid travel step backs. Paul George is the man. He's stopping everyone.
Well, that shot hasn't gone down for Harden in the playoffs, if we're being real. Like that, there's a reason he struggled, and if he was making more of those step back threes, he wouldn't be known as the bit of a playoff failure that he's been.
Oh, that's true. But Paul George, I think he's not getting a lot of credit right now because Oklahoma's kind of flying under the radar. Not many people, media is not really giving them attention because they're not doing anything like crazy. They're just playing good basketball, and he's the reason they're the best right now. The way he's playing is crazy good. And not to mention, too, Dennis Schroeder has been unreal.
Underrated pickup.
He's been a great pickup for them. But again, I feel like the way he's playing good is a direct causality or correlation, whatever you want to call it, with how Paul George has been playing.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, it's hard to argue with you. Like, the leadership qualities have definitely been there. I mean, again, we thought, funny you mentioned that. Dude, I had the 11th pick in my fantasy draft, and I took Paul George. And in a 12-team league, so it was a snake, so I picked Damian Lillard on the snake, but I picked Paul George. The group roasted me, bro. The group roasted me. They said, Paul George, you suck. Like, do you even know anything? Like, I'm just wondering, like, where those people are now, because I don't really hear them too loudly, because Paul George is on fire on both ends of the floor, and I fully support him being in the MVP candidacy. I might have him fifth. I might have him fifth, in my thing, even though you have him first.
He's a dark horse for the MVP race. He keeps this play up. I think he'll be right in the mix of it. And you know what? You know what a good MVP has? Leadership.
It's true.
Who's the Rockets' leader?
James Harden. And Chris Paul. They're co-leaders.
Chris Paul has that personality where mantra, you can tell he's the leader of that team.
Emotional
even
leader
when he doesn't play, he's the leader of that team. So, just little things here and there about James Harden that, I don't know if he's deserving of an MVP this year. Listen, his stats stay this way. Yeah. James Harden will win it, regardless whether I think he should or not. Really, every year, LeBron James should be winning most valuable player because
I think most people agree with that.
As value goes, no one is more valuable to their team than LeBron James. You take Kevin Durant out of Golden State still went 73 and 9. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you take LeBron.
Think Durant wasn't on that team. Most people, when they look back, they'll think Durant was on the 73 and 9 team. They'll realize, no, that's the team that lost.
You take LeBron out of Cleveland, and now Cleveland's playing for Zion Williamson. Exactly. LeBron is the most valuable player on any team he plays on, and it's not a question. Yeah. So really, if you want to get literal with the award, he should win it every year until he retires or falls off. But I don't think this guy's ever going to fall if he's a beast. But
I agree.
That's it. Those are my picks for the mid-season awards.
And likewise, thanks for coming on. That was a good conversation, man. I enjoyed, especially the James Harden conversation. I really enjoyed that. I've really kind of been adamant about the other side of that argument, but it's good to hear a contrarian. I love to hear the other side because I do respect, the opinion that his game is kind of ugly to watch and stuff like that. Me personally, I love it. I think it's awesome, but I can respect the other side. And that among a bunch of other conversations, I think were great. And I think you had some good picks, by the way. Nice, unique picks. And the Derrick Rose thing, I love too. I got to admit, that was some good passion to the
They always say I'm a power forward stuck in a point guard's body. I like playing that big man, hit them game, get them down. We play basketball.
Of
Who's
course.
always guarding the centers? It's me, even though I'm tiny as hell. It's
That's
because I
true.
like playing that defense.
You're PJ Tucker in there, man.
Oh, you're damn right.
Yeah,
man. Except
exactly.
he's got some nicer shoes than me. But
Oh, yeah. Oh, who knows, man? That could
PJ
change.
Tucker wins shoe game MVP in the NBA because his shoes are always on point.
Speaking of that, man, I'd like to try and do some like obscure awards, like not NBA awards, and like things like that, like sneaker champ, like like most disappointing player, like
James Harden.
Oh, yeah. You know what? We're just gonna end it there. No, I'm kidding. But no, man, Niko, thanks for coming on, man. It was a great conversation. Much appreciated you coming on, and you're always welcome back. If you got any other topics you want to fire away, man, we'd love to have you back.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, awesome. So another great episode of ISO Bowl Pod in the books, and we'll see you in good time. Maybe we'll do something over the All-Star break, or maybe we'll do our projection of All-Stars. Maybe we can have you and Nick on that to do that. That would be kind of interesting.
Yeah,
We'll see.
me and Nick get in a lot of very heated arguments when it comes to sports. Just a heads up.
Yeah, I'm going to become a referee very quickly. Okay, and with that, we'll take off. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon. Till then.